Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're all doing well. And today, my friends, we're back with the Tomb King vs. Empire showdown. It's going to be a Tomb King facing off against Boris Todbringer. Certainly a very angry mustache is here to, handle some business. And as far as my build goes, it's going to be an all-in Tomb King's rush. So basically, we're going with a whole line of Skeleton Warriors backed up by double Ushopti just to give me some stopping power against like Flagellants, Sigmar Suns, Greatswords. If they do make an appearance, granted, I think Greatswords are somewhat subpar in this matchup, but still having the anti-infantry and the pushing power of the Ushopti is quite nice. Now, the rest of the build here is going to be a very chariot heavy. I have to give credit where credit is due. This build was kind of explained to me by Falcon to an extent. His version of it is a little bit different than mine, but overall it's a similar principle. Russian with chariots, use the Tomb King with his amulet as well as Soul Blight to lower armor, and if there's no armor to lower, you still have Spirit Leech, and the Tomb King is a somewhat durable character who's good in combat. So a couple Nehekar Horsemen, chariots, Skeleton Horsemen, archers, and that is it. So certainly a very fun build. Now for my opponent, looking pretty damn solid for sure. He's got a front battle line of Flagellants backed up by Great Swords, a single Great Cannon here in the backfield, which is the Hammer of the Witches, Silver Bullets, Toddy, as well as a Firecaster. As many of the staples, the Firecaster an incredible choice against Tomb Kings, but with the build I brought, it's really not as big of a deal, right? Because essentially you can, if you lose a 300 gold skeleton, it's not like losing a Tomb Guard or something of quality, and Lower Fire isn't going to be that devastating against my chariots. So right out of the gates, my idea is to overwhelm the Empire. I send in chariots on multiple fronts, one going right here, here, and here, hammering into a couple different positions. He does, of course, have some Knights of the Blazing Sun back there, which will be slightly problematic, but you can see how badly Flagellants get it there, and certainly feels quite good. So we're going to be pulling back into the Knights of the Blazing Sun. I do have some Horsemen as well as my big Tomb King here, who shall be jumping in to do combat. Boris Todbringer rushes in to intercept this chariot, while the other one gets massive damage here on the Sigmar Suns, but is also suffering some nice Overwatch fire from the Silver Bullets, which seem to be partially obstructed for some reason. It looks like there might be a little bit of a hill there that's quite awkward. Nonetheless, the chariots pull back and rinse and repeat. The Flagellant front line just getting absolutely ravaged. And it's very tough for Empire Cavalry to keep up with this. I played a game against Falcon where I had the same problem. Basically, he would just pull the chariots back through just the skeleton chaff, and then I would charge with the cavalry, get caught in skeleton chaff. And it was a very, very strong tactic here. And it's very commonly used with like other factions that like to use chariots and things like that. We, of course, have seen it in Everchosens and all sorts of good stuff. But Skeletons moving forward, Spirit Leech going down on Knights of the Blazing Sun while their armor is lowered. So they're only at 70 armor right now, making my Nehekar Horsemen a little bit more efficient. Nice Burning Head from my opponent going down on those bad boys. And I got to deal with those Silver Bullets because my opponent is starting to accrue some pretty good value. And on the top side of the battlefield, he did grab his Knights of the Blazing Sun and ran down my Skeleton Chariot, so those poor chariots certainly got buttered up pretty good. Crumbling, but hopefully we'll be able to stabilize here as my Nehekar Horsemen do creep around the back. So I got some Horsemen in. My Skeleton Horsemen Archers will be getting ready to go on the offensive, what they should have been doing earlier. I think I could have compromised a couple pieces. And going after the Silver Bullets, my opponent does retreat them and intercepts with Toddy, while my chariots continue to slam into the front line. The Tomb King also just rampaging through, and I did find an opening for my Skeleton Horsemen Archers. And you can see the Ushopti here ended up being quite useful, as they do break those Great Swords who are rocking 69 models. That's what she said. Now, in the back, Nehekar Horsemen moving in. My opponent has not reacted quite yet, but those spears will be moving in pretty quickly, and they will blunt my charge, so he will be able to protect the Hammer of the Witches. But in the meantime, Silver Bullets do get back online, and my Skeleton Spearmen, as well as my Skeleton Horsemen Archers, will be taking up the mantle to try and shut down the Silver Bullets, which are getting some really good fire into my Tomb King. My opponent, obviously, with some very, very good micro this game. He's been keeping it pretty even here. So Skeleton Chariots getting ready to push in once again. Fireball going down to the Tomb King. Looks like I did dodge that, thankfully. And more Horsemen Archers are heavy in pursuit. Though in the backfield, my Nehekar Horsemen do get crumbled by Toddy as well as the spears. I did temporarily shut down the cannon. Granted, we'll see if it ends up being worth it in the end. And finally, a little bit of a lapse in my opponent's back line as we do jump on top of the Silver Bullets. The Tomb Kings do swarm. Realm of Souls is active, and these bad boys are certainly living their best life as we do finally shut down the Silver Bullets. But a big, nasty Burning Head. I do try and dodge this, but I should have learned my lesson by now. Trying to dodge Burning Heads with Tomb Kings is so incredibly tough. But if you bring an army like this, which is very chaff-centric, mostly skeletons and things like that, you're not really relying on a front line, and to hold back, like, it's not as devastating. When you're going through Shopti Great Bow, Bone Giant builds, like where your infantry need to hold something, that's where it becomes a big issue. With a build and kind of philosophy like this, it doesn't seem to matter too much. Now, the Silver Bullets are able to be stabilized in the backfield as my Spearmen do kind of get crumped, but I do get the Skeleton Horsemen Archers once again on the Great Cannon, really trying to shut those bad boys down. But the Knights of the Blazing Sun do swoop in, and man, oh man, he's doing an excellent job kind of cleaning up the scraps here and making sure I don't get those freebies in the back line. The dreaded double Fireball bug does go down, and it looks like it did hit my Tomb King there. So I don't know what it is, but there's some sort of a bug with that. That could have potentially cost me the game, right? It did quite a bit of damage. But Tomb Strike active, we have the duel. Deadly Onslaught and Foe Seeker is popped here, but the Tomb King is quite formidable. With Tomb Strike active, his stats are very good, actually a little bit better than Toddy's overall, and he does hit harder too. Actually not quite with the Deadly Onslaught active. little bit problematic. So knowing the Tomb King might be in trouble, I swarm in with everything, and this is another reason why the Tomb King is pretty cool, despite the fact that it's riding a big badass, you know, cat thing, is that he does have this item. Let me go ahead and show you guys. Where is it? The Scorpion Armor. So when he's below 50% HP, he gets 20% ward save, which in a duel versus other single entities and characters like that is massively valuable. So taking a look around the battlefield, the Ushapti summon will be going down because I know this is the battle to basically decide the game, the duel between these two characters. And the rest of the Imperial forces, for the most part, the cannon crew is coming back. A nice burning head from my opponent once again. But it's looking a little bit grim for the Todbringer here, as he is afflicted with another Spirit Leech. The Tomb King gets in there and really does a bunch of damage, and for the most part, I do not see too many avenues through which the Imperial forces can come back. We have some rallying greatswords, and they will be run down pretty badly by chariots, of course. Chariots, these ones, don't have the best AP values, but still, it is quite devastating against infantry, and once again, he's all over the place with these Knights of the Blazing Sun in a good way. They're right on top of my chariots, but we are able to compromise the backline positions. Toddy does lose the duel, and the Firecaster will be falling to the onslaught of the undead. So GG, well played. It was a fun match for sure. After the game, he did ask me what I thought about his build, and in all honesty, I like that build a lot. The one thing I would cut from it would be the Greatswords. I think if you cut the Greatswords, cut one Flagellant. I think you just need 2 Sigmar Suns, 2 Flagellants, or 1 Sigmar Sun, 2 Flagellants, as well as a couple, you know, spears. Toddy plus the Firecaster is an excellent combo. It gives you a ton of utility, and the Burning Heads, even against Chaff, is still useful. And Lore of Fire in general, Fireball is just good against Tomb Kings. But I would cut the Greatsword for sure. Cut 1 Flagellant, and then that gives you like an extra 1,400 gold to work with. You can mix in more support units. You can get a 3rd Cavalry unit. Knights of the Blazing Sun were quite effective. I think if he had had maybe more of those, he could have defended his lines a little bit better. So maybe another Knight of the Blazing Sun and another Spear unit. Cut the Greatsword, cut the Flagellant, get a Knight of the Blazing Sun and a Spear unit on top of that, and suddenly your army is going to be a little bit wider. Also, if you're going to go the cannon route, I found that going 2 is usually a little bit better, simply because if I do go with like triple Ushapti Great Bow, this build is going to lose really badly because the Great Cannon will get swarmed by 3 Great Bows with overcasted Spirit Leech support, and then the cavalry are going to have to push in into Great Bows, and it's just not a good situation. So, but 2 Empire cannons, excuse me, got the hiccups here, can typically do the trick in my experience. But again, it goes either way, and there is a little bit of build roulette in that. I'll go ahead and show you guys my Empire builds for Tomb Kings. I have a couple that are relatively effective. So well played to my opponent. Here, a Glue, we'll call him. And that is it for this analysis. Let's go ahead and break it down for the Sons of Sigmar. I know you guys like that good Empire business. So where art thou? The Empire, yes. The Empire versus Tomb Kings. I have a couple builds. This is one that I've used, and it's pretty similar to his, you can see. Basically what you do is you get Toddy, you get the Firecaster, you have more chaff, and you use Shielded Spearmen, a little bit less, you know, Flagellant Presence, Silver Bullets. But what I've done in my recent build is actually cut that Outrider with the Grenade Launcher, because I feel like Knights of the Blazing Sun and this Infantry and Burning Head is enough. You more so need to have something to deal with like the other elements of the battle. And something you can do is you can cut Hold the Line and cut, what is that other ability? You want Kindle Flame. Yeah, I just needed to get a little bit more money, and you can go with like 2 Pistoliers. So let's just do this and downgrade to a basic Spearman to defend the cannon. You could just put him in the back. So you have double cannons here in case they go Great Bow. Honestly, Pistoliers don't do the worst job at kind of poking chariots and things like that. They also give you a little bit of presence. They can countercharge chariots for a cheaper price point and keep them from just rampaging in your lines, and overall, it does pretty well. But yeah, the Tomb King's Rush is a little bit tricky to stop for sure. If you know what's coming, that's a whole different situation. You can mix in like some War Wagons. Like if you know your opponent likes to play that way, you can honestly throw in a couple War Wagons, which can honestly blunt their charges and shoot them with their range attacks, and it's like very effective. There's a whole bunch of ways you can play this from the Empire perspective. On top of that, you can even go Marcus Wolfart, right? You can go Marcus. You definitely want his sniping abilities. They can do some serious work, although cutting Amber Bow is probably fine. And yeah, Firecaster is still very good here. You have the 2 War Wagons, then you just get another like Spear unit. And now this build would probably be pretty well-rounded, because the War Wagons against the Chariots, they can blunt their charge by countercharging them and shooting them with their long rifles. The Cannons will deal with Ushaptis and characters and things like that, and the Knights of the Blazing Sun should be able to adequately defend your back line. There's a whole bunch of ways you can play Empire. That's why it's my favorite faction, but that's it for now. Take care. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the post-game analysis as well, and we'll be back with more videos soon. Cheers.